Hey church, my name is Kelsey Ross and I'm the Director of Youth Ministries at Wesley, and I'm here tonight to bring you your Do-It-Yourself Devo. Pastor Sarah and Pastor Justin have shared a number of books and resources with you the last couple of weeks, which have helped bring them comfort and devotion in their own spiritual walks. And tonight, I want to share with you about a podcast which has done the same for me. Now, I'm going to start by saying that I love podcasts. I've become really accustomed to listening to them when I'm running on the treadmill, in the car driving, or when I'm in the kitchen cooking dinner. I think there's something really intimate about hearing people share the meditations of their hearts in their own voices, and it brings a level of intimacy to the experience, hearing the emotion and passion as they share. And all of this is true of one of my favorite podcasts called The Confessional, hosted by the Reverend Nadia Boltz-Weber, who is an ELCA pastor and the founder of the House for All Sinners and Saints Church in Denver, Colorado. She is the author of 3 best-selling books, 2 of which I've read, called Pastrix, The Cranky Beautiful Life of a Sinner and Saint, and Accidental Saints, Finding God in All the Wrong People. Both books are truly life-giving, and I encourage you to read them if you're interested, and I'm happy to lend out one of my copies to someone at Wesley if you're interested. Just reach out to me. But more about the podcast. Nadia welcomes guests to share stories about when they were at their worst. As a pastor and coincidentally a former stand-up comic, she welcomes the people sharing on her podcast to talk about the worst parts of themselves and how they deserve grace and forgiveness and healing in the midst of all that they struggle with. One of my favorite episodes comes from season 1, where she interviewed Megan Phelps Roper, a former member of the Westboro Baptist Church, and the two talked about the magnitude of God's love and the power of forgiveness and redemption. Megan shares a beautiful story of finding God and seeing God's creation with love in her eyes, which caused her to turn away from the church she was raised in and seek God elsewhere in more inclusive spaces. At the end of every episode, Nadia offers a specially written blessing or prayer for her guests, hearing their unique stories, knowing the deeply vulnerable details of what they've been through, and then sending them back into the world with a message of love and grace, which was written just for them. These stories always resonate with me because they're raw and they're real, and they come from people just like me and you. Hi, Champ. He's coming up to say hello. But these are people who ask questions, people who don't always feel like they're good enough, and people who have screwed up big time in their lives, which is just like you and me and everyone at Wesley. I've had royal mess-ups in my life. I've had enough to write my own book about. But these people, and Nadia herself, they make me feel better about all the ways I've fallen short of God's glory, and they give me hope for all the parts of my story that aren't written yet. But now I want to address specifically my sweet teenagers. So to those of you who are listening tonight, and parents, if you have teens at home, please share this with them as well. But we talk a lot at Surge about how no one is perfect, and we all screw up and make mistakes, but God still loves us exactly as we are and exactly who we are. And if you ever get tired of listening to me share about my own screw-ups and shortcomings, open up this podcast. Hear from people around the world just like you and me who have parts of their stories which are hard to talk about and which they may carry some shame from. And then be renewed by Nadia's words of comfort and assurance, which remind us that we are all so, so loved. And we aren't the only ones in the world that make big mistakes. But we are a community of people, a family of God's beloved and deeply imperfect children who deserve love and grace and healing and understanding. So know tonight that you are not alone. And know tonight that there are people with tragedies and darkness and inexplicably hard times in their past as a part of their story, who are finding the courage to speak up and speak out. And know that there are people just like Nadia, waiting with open arms, open hearts, and ears ready to listen to what you have to say about your own story. because what you've been through, it matters. As Serge often says, your story matters. Be reminded of that tonight, and know that you at Wesley have entered a safe place, a place where you can be exactly who you are and exactly how you are without fear of judgment or persecution. And most importantly, be reminded of this: God loves you. God loves you more than any of us will ever understand. And God welcomes the person you are. And so do we. So have a great week, church. We'll see you soon.